Welcome to Surya KLCC's Mental Health Awareness Special Podcast Series. Today we focus on cyberbullying, in particular the power of online words and how it can impact brands and businesses. Cyberbullying in the context of business and brands refers to the use of digital platforms such as social media forums or other online channels to harass, intimidate or undermine a company, its employees or its reputation. This could manifest in various ways, such as malicious comments or reviews, harassment of employees, misinformation campaigns, impersonations or defamations, and doxing. For those who don't know what that means, it's publicizing sensitive information about company personnel to incite harassment or threats. In business, cyberbullying can severely damage customer trust, employee morale, and overall brand reputation, with long-lasting financial and operational repercussions. To discuss how cyberbullying can impact brands and businesses, we have Professor Dato Dr. Andrew Mohanraj Chandrasekaran, who is a psychiatrist by profession and has served in the Ministry of Health for over 12 years before taking up international assignments with an NGO after the Asian Tsunami of 2004 in Aceh, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Timor Leste. He is also actively involved in mainstreaming of mental health issue in Malaysia as the president of the Malaysian Mental Health Association since 2018 and policy advisor to the Green Ribbon Group Malaysia. He is currently a member of the board of directors of World Federation for Mental Health. Dato Andrew also has served as a short-term consultant on mental health and substance abuse with the WHO Western Pacific Regional Office. So without further ado, please welcome Dato Andrew. How are you, Dato?
Very well, thank you. Feeling much better after that generous introduction of yours.
So, yes, and I want to ask, how do you find time, Dato, to do the normal things in life?
That's a very good question. I try to manage somehow.
Speaking of doing normal things, to add to his accolades, he is also the author of A Journey Through Mental Health and Society, a collection of essays which basically covers many areas of mental health. And we'll be talking about this book as well. Dato, congrats on another book.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to reading it. So Dato, let's get to it. Yeah. Now, a majority of the discussion on cyberbullying focuses on how it can impact lives of individuals, right? Even before coming to this, I was not really aware of cyberbullying impacting brands as well as companies. So, in your opinion, how can cyberbullying affect these brands?
Well, cyberbullying all this while has been sort of thought of as, involving individuals, right? And we know what can happen in cases like that, where individuals can suffer from high levels of stress, anxiety, depression, and even become suicidal.
Yeah.
However, when it comes to organizations, this can be a little bit different.
Okay.
In the sense that, individuals should be able to cope with this differently. For example, one thing that I always advise people is to ignore the insults, just switch off. And that's it, one of the ways.
Definitely.
Rather than trying to provoke the person, the instigator, or replying to things. Whereas a corporate entity can't do that. You can't just shut off, right? You got to respond. And I see the difficulties that are being faced by corporate entities now, because this involves a great deal of apparatus in order to deal with this. So I guess that is the big difference here when it comes to individuals and corporate entities. And talking about this infrastructure, it must be very well thought of. A corporate entity can't just be emotional about replying to these criticisms. And often these criticisms are really, very relenting and with the intention of trying to demean that organization or insult the organization in such a way that it is difficult for the organization to regain its reputation. So that's the whole idea of bullying, and it's no different from bullying an individual.
Do you think it's harder for brands and companies to get the sort of sympathies of everyday John and Jane Q taxpayer, because they are entities, they are brands, and we often assume that they can take it. They have lawyers, they have defense mechanisms in place, and that's why that people are more cyberbullying for businesses can prolong for so much longer, because we believe that they can take it.
Absolutely, because there is, I think, an inherent how should I say, not distrust, but unsympathetic view of the
against
consumer.
The man.
Against the big corporation, a big money-making organization. So why should we sympathize with them? So even passive observers of this bullying may not really feel so much for the organization simply because of this situation. And that puts the organization in a bit of a spot, really, in terms of dealing with this.
Definitely. Now, obviously, the chain of events would start off with a brand makes a mistake, or perhaps they make a wrong move. That leads to a posting, a comment on social media, a video, whatever, which then snowballs into a slew of negative criticism, a slew of videos, and all that, which may eventually result in fall of revenue, in effects and operations and all that. But at what point do we separate customer dissatisfaction, customer disapproval with cyberbullying when it comes to brands and businesses?
Yeah, fantastic question, Vinod. I think this is really critical here, because it requires a bit of honesty and introspection on the part of the business as well, to understand that this is an honest criticism, and therefore it requires an honest reply. And even if it means that the organization has to apologize for the mistake, I think they should do it, and they would only be held in high esteem for doing that. Eventually, the consumer or the netizens in this respect will understand and appreciate the fact that they took the trouble to apologize and to admit the wrong here. So I think for that to happen also, there are certain mechanisms that they have to put in place. For example, I think already big corporations are looking into having teams to quickly rebut any form of criticisms and positive criticisms, with regards to their service and things like that. And here, of course, speed is the key, really. And if you just waited on that for a couple of days, then it can snowball into something else that can be, sort of padded on, and a lot of it may not even have any basis, whereas the original complaint itself may have had some basis to it. So therefore, the organizations need to very quickly respond to this. And for that, you may need to take proactive measures, really. Have a team on standby, and even, simulate this sort of criticisms and questions that you can anticipate, and then have the team ready in case of crisis management. But again, honesty is really the basis of all this, and not to assume that all criticism is actually bullying.
Definitely. No, that's a social media. One thing, before I get to the question, there was a quote by one Henry Ford, who said back in the day, he said, "You can buy my car in any color as long as it's black."
Okay.
Right? I think if he said it today, he would suffer a lot of social media hatred. So what social media has done is it's given us as consumers an immense power, whereby we can hold brands in check. You make one false move and you will face the repercussions, the wrath of the people. But when we bring in the term of cyberbullying into this space, are we limiting the power of consumers? Are we sort of evening up the scales a bit to benefit the brands by saying that this criticism cannot be said because it's cyberbullying?
No, I don't think so, because I think overwhelming evidence show that really when it comes to comments on social media and negative comments as such, it's more tilting towards an opinion that may not have any basis, really. And that's added on by the fact that the whole algorithm behind social media posts and comments and things like that seems to somehow intrinsically encourage negative comments. On top of it, you have a kind of a mob sort of thinking in this, where everybody just latches onto it and just piles on to these comments. So in the receiving end is really businesses and organizations. Nevertheless, we cannot discount the fact that such criticisms are also important.
Of course.
But I think in terms of regulating this, it's really important, and it's crucial for us as consumers also to be educated on our responsibilities. I feel personally this has gone too far, in my own opinion, that somehow it is also a reflection that as consumers we don't really realize the importance of this, number one. And we think by hiding behind this cloak of anonymity, we are going to get away with things, which may not be the case. And the fact that this has got repercussions. Bullying is strictly, shouldn't be allowed at all, really. Whether it is in a small organization, whether it affects an individual, or an individual and his group of like-thinking friends target an organization.
Just a bit of pushback on that, Dato. Just allow me to play devil's advocate. Is this a case of the carpenter blaming his tools, when instead that the man holding the smoking gun are the users or the keyboard warriors, not the platforms?
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, coming back to what we had discussed just now, it is our responsibility ultimately. It's the values that we hold, and and to understand that being a bully is really it's not on, in the sense that you are trying to demean an individual who cannot defend themselves. And not only that, you encourage others to jump into the bandwagon with the sole purpose of creating this hostile environment that would demean and to what is the word? Help me out here. To ridicule and to deflate an organization or an individual's ego altogether. So I think in that regard, the responsibility is actually on us as a consumer and a user to understand the consequences of our action, and how, even if we do not comment on these things, we must also not seem to be encouraging this by forwarding these posts to others or sharing this to others. I think that's the least that we can do in this regard. So irrespective of whether there's a mechanism out there to apprehend us, I think the first thing is it's us within ourselves, and that's what we should do.
So I want to go back to now the companies then, in terms of companies and how they manage their reputation. What do you think should be, how should companies take a proactive stance in combating cyberbullying?
Combating cyberbullying with regards to them being the victim.
Yeah.
I think, number one, it's important for the companies to realize the greatest asset is the employees. It's not always the case, because some people, just work for a company to earn a living.
Yes.
They're not so concerned about anything else. But higher up in the management levels, you find a great deal of burnout as a result of people not aligning themselves to the company's philosophies. And when a crisis hits, like this, some cyberbullying incident, and that's when they start having second thoughts about the organization and whether they should stand with the organization in facing this crisis. And they too have their own turmoil and their stress, and disillusionment with that. So the companies, I think, should prevent this by bringing everybody on board. And that means having clear lines of communications and honest communications and being transparent about things. In addition to that, also, like we discussed, to have a team on standby. Not all companies can have that. It's very expensive to actually dedicate a crisis management team here. But in some ways, there should be some preparedness here. What are the lines of communications? Who would speak to the media? And things like that must be, made clear. And one final thing is, when companies receive this sort of criticisms, as I said, when it comes to individuals, we are able to switch off and say, you know what, I'm just going to go off the social media for a month. I'm going to take a break and come back, and all this will be forgotten. And companies can't do this, right? So in an immediate response, whatever the company may feel, I think it is good for them to show some empathy here.
I think when we talk about mental health, one area of concern for me is that when we talk about mental health from the perspective, in this case, if we're talking about cyberbullying towards an individual, there is a tangible outcome, something that I can see the effect. But for businesses, I can't. So if I'm a consumer now and I'm listening to this podcast, why should I care? Why should I care about the cyberbullying that is thrown towards a business?
It's a very good question. It may not be appreciated so soon, because it's, after all, a big business. They know how to take care of themselves. But eventually it's going to hit us as individuals, because when it comes to bullying, this is basically targeting an individual, and this could be sort of sustained, and with the whole idea of demeaning an individual and creating a hostile environment in that. And this involves a lot of power dynamics as well. Whereas in harassment, sometimes it is dealing or targeting certain groups of people, like targeting, in the workplace, targeting women, for example, or people with disabilities. So that's harassment, and we have laws for that. But bullying is a problem. So again, workplace bullying should be handled and better handled with robust policies, not just depending on the laws of the land for this.
But just as a voter and as a consumer and as a citizen, seeing that how you are close to the government and you may have some, you know people within the structure, do you see are these policies coming out soon?
I think so. I think they will come out soon for two reasons. One, I see a level of sincerity in this government with regards to cyberbullying. A lot of statements being made by the minister and concerned, and he's also called for meetings. So I think there is a level of sincerity here. But it also has to be, in my mind, be a little bit more robust in the sense of reminding Malaysians of the punitive actions that can follow, for irresponsible behavior online. And that has to come out a little bit more strongly, I feel.
So, Dato, just to wrap this up, what would you say to brands and perhaps even people who are engaging in this cyberbullying exercise, if they are exhibiting such behavior? What would you say to them?
I think what I would say is if they are exhibiting this sort of behavior in a sustained manner, then they'll have to be introspective enough to analyze and see what is wrong with their lives that they have to resort to bullying in order to obtain satisfaction. And beyond that, also for them to distinguish between what is constructive criticism, what is rightful criticism, and what is bullying. So the realization that some of the actions may construe bullying is important. And for that we need to create a little bit more awareness, because I do believe in some cases people may not have an intention to very strongly demean or devalue another individual. So there's a bit of a fine line there. What starts off as criticism may then slowly become relentless bashing that individual, and that's when it becomes bullying without any real basis for that. So I think this is the kind of realization that I would think is important for a bully or a potential bully. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dato, for being here. I truly enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you.
And we will cut off some parts, definitely.
Please do.
So that's all we have for you all today, folks. It was a really insightful conversation that I had with Dato. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And as always, please consider the power of your words and what they can do to brands and businesses online as well. Thank you again, Dato. And before we go, maybe you can just shout out a bit about your book.
Yes, certainly. Okay, This is fresh from the oven. It was just
fresh from the oven. There we go.
Collected 2 days ago. So this is called a journey through mental health and society. But basically, it is a collection of essays that were written in reaction to things that happened around in our society. For example, why do people go for cosmetic surgery, or why do people marry young while they're in universities? The issue of substance use in society and why that is increasing. And it also dwells on some chronic mental health issues, and it tackles stigma and discrimination in mental health.
Wow.
So there's about 80 odd essays here. Even something like why successful women fall to internet love scams. And I've also written on husband abuse rather than wife abuse.
Okay, thank you. Finally, somebody is championing us. Can I please get a signed copy then?
Oh, definitely. Thank you.
And how do I get my hands on this?
Well, that's what it's this was brought out in a hurry. So I've not really got a mechanism on how to have this available on sale, but we are working with Amazon on this.
Nice.
But I could give my email ID, and those who want the book can just write to me.
And you'll send
Quite
that. Thank you.
happily.
Thank you so much. So the book is called A Journey Through Mental Health and Society, a collection of essays by Dato Andrew. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
for this. And as always, guys, please tune in for upcoming episodes discussing the intersection of digital behavior and business. We'll see you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.